Welcome to the Azure Data Factory training course. So far you've done two sections. Section 1 was covering what the course entails and who am I, so you get to know a bit about me and my story. Section 2 was about what is Data Factory. Now we're going to go a bit deeper on each level in different sections. But now, welcome to Section 3. We'll go through the key concepts and components of Data Factory so you can maybe even get started. So, the key concepts. Data Factory, I've explained a bit about it and how you can use it, but in all essence of its being, it's an orchestration tool. It's basically how you can orchestrate different tasks, jobs, or pipelines, however you want to do it. But it is an orchestrator, meaning it basically can say, okay, you, Mr. Task, Mrs. Task, you can run now. And when you've finished, if you're failed, do this. If you've succeeded, do this. Quite easy. It makes life a lot easier. It's the same as if you were using a SQL agent job, you would have step 1, step 2, step 3. This is all this is doing. You're doing different steps. You want different jobs to run at different times, different business ways of working to do different things at different times, schedules, etc. What you need to run for your business at when. And some of those things could be data movement. Obviously, it's called Data Factory, so a lot of it is evolved around data. It doesn't have to be as per se. You can use it as an orchestrator to run tasks or jobs. I do that for certain reasons. Say Azure SQL database, it doesn't have a SQL agent, so you can't have jobs in there like you do on an on-prem version or a different variant of SQL in Azure. So with ADF, I can actually trigger certain SQL queries or procedures, depending how you set it up. So then I can actually do maintenance on my database. That's not really data movement tasks. It's actually just triggering something. You're triggering a job or a task to be done somewhere else, hence orchestration. It's also the low-code setup, and I will show you how I mean by that. So you can put code in there, and you can put SQL code in there. Should you always do that? Yeah, it depends how you're setting it up. Not always. It's good to have the code SQL Server, let's say. So the store procedure is the source of truth, and you're not going through task and task trying to debug something. You can go to SQL and you see how it's ran or which store procedure failed, and you find the code there. You're not trying to go through Data Factory and check which part where and why. It can get messy if you keep everything in Data Factory. Not ideal. Low code transformation also can be done. That's in the sense of data flows. I will show you them. It makes it a lot easier if you're getting started with data and you can click and choose certain parts. But if you know like SQL Server or different languages like Python, which you could trigger a notebook, let's say, it's best to use those tools that you know, which actually are the code itself. I'll explain a bit more why in this. And templates, I've put that in there. It's not really a core concept, but why I put templates in there is if you go through them, you'll see different ways of using Data Factory, different ways Microsoft is saying, oh, what about this? So it gives you a bit of inspiration of how to use it. Now, components. So the components I want to show you in this section is the pipelines, activities, the data sets, the link services, the data flows, and the integration runtimes. I will show you a basic part of them, setting it up, how to use it, and a basic part of how to go through them. So enough of slides. Let's get dirty. So if we start off in the order of how it would work, what you would need, well, first you would need Data Factory. So say we got the Data Factory. If we were setting this up, what you would need, you wouldn't need just a pipeline of tasks. You need some way of getting it. You could do that. But technically, if I clicked here now, let me show you. If I wanted to create a pipeline, let's go here, new pipeline. For creating a new one, you could technically choose something. So say I'm doing a data movement. I want to actually just copy some data across. So you've got general tasks here. Oh, here we go, move and transform. So let's copy data. At the moment, I'm just building a brand new pipeline. Want to drag that in. I don't know what source or sink I want, and I've not even set that up. So what do? Oh, I can choose ones which are already predefined, but maybe I want a new one. So let's do that. Let's create a new one. I don't really mind what it is. It's maybe blob storage. I should know that it is. Oh, everything comes from Excel. Let's go for Excel. I'm just setting this up. Let's Excel 1. Oh, I don't have a link service. Okay, let's build one of those. Maybe I need it. So I'm going to have Azure Blob Storage 2. I can put a little description in there. My blob storage. Yes, now I've got a blob storage. A bit of a description is always helpful. Naming convention is also very helpful. So say blob storage. Ooh, I'm not typing. Yes, I am typing. Blob storage for HR. This is a really bad example of how to set it up, but you get the point. If you actually label them of what the link service is for, it gives you a lot more context of what it is. If you have blob storage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're going to have a very hard time trying to figure out what's where or why it's there and how it's used, etc. You could easily then set this up. So I'm using one here as an example, another example. These are just test account ones. You obviously have different subscriptions and so on. I can just create. Now I'm creating a new link service, which then that's already linked in to what I need of my data set. So now I've got a data set, which is Excel, which is actually connected to a link service. And if you remember, if you don't really know what I'm going on about, please go rewatch section 2. You've skipped ahead and you're missing parts. But what it means, you have a link service. That's your connector. That means you're going to blob storage. It means you're going to SQL Server. That means you're going to somewhere. You have a connector going to somewhere. Then you have a data set. You're choosing the data within that connector. So you have a link service, you have a data set, and then you're choosing which data. You can choose all of the data in there. You could even loop over certain parts in that link service. You can have a data set which is kind of like a wildcard. So I could put a star in here, for example, or I can go down to a fine detail of which file I want. Different ways of setting it up. But I'm just going to choose, I don't really care what I want. I'm going to choose a different one as well. I don't have a sheet name in there. I can't connect this one. So this one's a bad example, but if I click OK, let's see if it works. Okay, it's let me go through anyway. Just an example demo. I've never done Excel through here before, but now I have my source. So I'm copying data from this spreadsheet of whatever it is. I want to put that somewhere. Say I want to put it to SQL Server. If I didn't have that defined here already, I could go new, and I want to put it in SQL. I'm sure there's a SQL one here somewhere. Azure SQL Database. That's where I'm going to. I've not put that in there yet, but this is now going towards a different data set. So which table do you want to put that in? Well, at the moment, I don't even know. I don't want to go to this database, so I need a new link service again. And this can be Danny's SQL Server. Example, if that's what the name was. You choose which subscription it's coming from, the actual server name, SQL, and we need the database you want to go to, and I'm going to put it in KrugeDB. I'm not going to do any authentication now. I don't think, well, I could put it in blah blah. The fake example, if it lets me. Let's see, password. Hit it in. There we go. Pops up. And then we're creating it. So now I'm creating a SQL Server for my link service, and that's going to be connected into my new data set and connected into my new pipeline. So I'm going to OK that one. I've not defined everything. This is a demo of showing you how to get started. So yes, there are parts missing. It's trying to put me in my one password for secure keep password. But if we go back to what I was actually talking about, you have a new pipeline. So you got a terrible pipeline name, pipeline 1, but you get the drift. You have a source, which is now the Excel spreadsheet, and that's going to a Azure SQL database table. And you can choose different ways that you actually would move that data. So I don't want to go too far into this now, but as a general example, you're choosing which file it's coming from. And that could be a wildcard list of the files. It can go recursive within that container. So you have different folder levels, and you can even go to find details of how many connections you want to. If you were going to sync, you have the insert, upsert, or you could even run it as a store procedure, how you would actually want to write that detail. I'm just doing a simple insert. That means you need your own mechanism of having, if you're handling duplicates. But upsert would allow you to actually check what data is there versus what's coming in, and if it already exists, it won't try and insert it again. It will insert on. It will let you do an update or insert, hence the word upsert. If that table doesn't exist, you can click auto create table. Dangerous part of that, it will define the data types for you. So if you are doing that, it's good to get data in, but check what data types they are. If you don't know, consult someone who is a SQL Server expert who knows this stuff, get the right data types. It's very critical. Why? If you have the wrong data types defined, true story, it can really go wrong at scale. So in the past, I had a customer. They had a pipeline working perfectly fine until one day, this pipeline that took seconds took hours, and we're talking 9 hours. It was from seconds to hours. Why? Because the data type was actually done as an mvarchar max and not as a varchar or whatever it was. Basically, that skewed the whole optimization plan and made it go haywire. If they actually had the correct data type, it would never been a problem, and they didn't need the data type that they had. So this became a huge issue that took a few days to actually figure out where it gone wrong. And I got the phone call, had to debug it, and everything pressures on. It turned out to be a data type issue. Also, let's see. So now we have a pipeline, we have an activity, we have a data set, we have a link service. So that's a general way of setting one up. It's quite straightforward. If we look at a different example of a pipeline, okay, we have a main pipeline. So this is a bit more of a different naming convention. Load. So what I have, what it's actually doing is a lookup. So you'll see this is the main, which actually would trigger other pipelines. So there's other pipelines in here. If we also look at one, which would be, say, another variant, the other child pipelines are in here, but the master pipeline is there. This executes other ones. I like to set this up this way because when you see the monitor, you actually see different levels of the triggering of the pipelines. So what it would do, it'll actually execute and delete old files from Azure Data Lake Storage. And then you have the pipeline here, will execute and do different data movements. These are a bit more, you see, first pipeline goes, and then if that succeeds, it goes to the next pipeline, and so on. So if we look at one of these, where it'll execute all of the tables, we'll do a lookup here. So you get a few nested ones. Do you want to go too far with nested pipelines? Not so much. It can become terrible to debug them. It's good to separate them in a good way. You don't want to have too many nested levels, otherwise you're clicking through next. Yeah, that's not fun. I've done that with a customer, and it is really not fun to debug a pipeline. I normally go for only a few nested levels if I have to. So you have your trigger from your master, the pipeline there, and then you can go if you want to pass through. So then you have trigger for each. Please don't do a for each within a for each. That can also get very messy. But then it will iterate over tables, and you see the different tasks in here. Be a copy task, so on. It can be quite complex, and it's good to actually name the pipelines in the correct manner. So I have my master trigger on-prem to ADLS. So an on-prem server going to an Azure Data Lake storage. For each table load to ADLS. So on-prem is going to for each on each table, and it's going to ADLS. So you sort of get a point of what you need to look for or which one it is. And also here, get table list trigger for each. So you see this one is the one which is doing the lookup. You can call it lookup, table list, or get table list, however you want to do it. That's a lot about pipelines. If we go into actual data flows, now, I don't like to use these too much, but please, if you do, go ahead. This is a simple one. So down here, you'll see I click data flows. You click easily open a new data flow. I have an example of a data flow, which I'm going to create. So you see, click here, wanted to add the source. I add which data source I want to go to. You can choose it and go through next. And then you can click the next icon and you have a choice. But if you know SQL Server well, or a different language, but I'm a SQL guy, you have all these different functions or items which you can use. And these are different parts that you would normally see in a SQL query of how you would change data, join data, or so on. So you could even say, I want to join, and then it will tell you which type of join you want. So if you want to get started, this is good. And a general example like this is quite straightforward. You have your source, you have a join. I could cast that certain data into something and put it into somewhere. Quite straightforward. Is this the optimal way of doing that? No, because this would have a Spark cluster underneath. You have a spin up time. You have to run that. If you had this as a copy activity, or you were doing this in SQL, you could have a query, or you could have a store procedure, and this could trigger the store procedure, and then you get the data into a table, let's say. So you've copied the table data into SQL. You run a store procedure to do the join and do the cast, and then you choose to get the table to get the data out from said table. That would be a lot more optimal. No spin up time, would run in seconds. This would take about 5 minutes to run for something that can run in seconds. Where it can get complicated is like this. So here's a template from Microsoft, and it gets very complex. I'm not going to go through all the different steps, but imagine this failed. And the documentation is, as all documentation is, lacking. If it's not there, how are you supposed to know the context behind this? Even with certain names in place, it's very hard to understand. So yes, this can become easy to set up at the beginning. It can also grow to become complex a bit like this. And then how are you going to debug it? If you have to click here to understand the different parts of each one, you're not going to have fun. If this was actually in SQL code, you could start to evaluate what the method in the madness was, or what the business logic is. If you can't read the business logic easily, you're going through each one of this and trying to understand it. I don't want to do this. I know Data Factory inside and out, and I do not want to do this. Please be careful if you start building stuff in here and the next person, you have to explain it to them. They're not going to understand what your business logic was. Because you built it, you know it, but you want to go on vacation, right? So other people need to understand it. So you don't want to get called while you're on a beach sipping a cocktail. I don't. I want to build stuff which is explainable. And if they can read the code easily, they can also understand it easily. Also, if you didn't see what you would also have, so that's data flows. We've gone through a pipeline. You'd also have an integration runtime. The integration runtime, if you didn't watch section 2, that's the engine of it, so the compute power. At the moment, it's just an auto-resolve, but you'd have a self-hosted one, the VNet one, in a later section. Now, that's the end of section 3. Set up a couple of examples. Very simply, you have a pipeline, a data flow, and a bit of an understanding of how to see that in live, see it actually built. Please watch section 4. Don't miss it. This is going to be a fun one. We're going to go through Synapse, Data Factory, and Fabric. What are the differences? Because Data Factory is actually in all of those. So why? Why are the differences? How are the differences? Let's go through that, understand it, and see which Data Factory is for you. Thank you for watching section 3. See you in section 4.